Yes, children, in today's class, we're going to talk about something which deals with the present. Present, it means the gift. Okay, now here in the story, the gift of the Magi, it was written by O. Henry. He has beautifully said about a couple, it means a pair, who talks about a present, like what can we give a present on a Christmas Eve? Okay, so now here Mr. Henry has described his level of the story very nicely, so we will understand what he has told in that story. Before we get into the lesson, we shall also understand a little about our author O. Henry, what he has done. Yes. O. Henry was the pen name of William Sidney Porter. Children, pen name means it's not his original name, the name which was given by the writer or the author. Okay. O. Henry was the pen name of William Sidney Porter. He was born on September 11, 1862. His first collection of his stories appeared in 1904 in Cabbages and Kings, which was immediately popular. That is, as soon as he had written a story and it became popular. He was a very popular story writer and he was very famous in writing short stories. Okay, now here comes the name of the lesson, the gift of the Magi. Let us get into the story and understand. $1.87. That is all. And 60 cents of it was in pennies. Pennies saved 1 and 2 at a time by bulldozing the grocer and the vegetable man and the butcher, until one's cheeks burned with a silent immutation or parsimony that such close dealing implied. 3 times Della counted it, $1.87, and the next day would be Christmas. Now here in the story, we have a young lady named called Della. Okay, so now she has collected a single penny of, like, while buying a vegetables or a fruit or going to a butcher shop. Here bulldozing means bargaining to the core. She used to bargain a single penny to buy a gift for the Christmas Eve to her husband. She wants to buy a Christmas gift to her husband, so she started to collect money. Okay, so when she started to collect the money, she found that she has collected $1.87. Okay, how did she save her money? She saved her money by bargaining to the vegetable shopkeeper and the vendor. Like, she used to bargain so much until her cheeks was turned into red. She used to talk so much, bargain, and she used to save money to buy a gift for her husband for the Christmas Eve. There was clearly nothing to do but flop down on the shabby little couch and howl. So Della did it, which instigates the moral reflection of life, is so made up of sobs, sniffles, and smiles, with sniffles predominating. So here, children, now Della was not from a very well-off family. She was not well-to-do. It means she did not have much of money. So she was in a middle-class family girl. So when she got married to Mr. James, also she was not well off. Okay, now she was living in a house where she had the the sofa, and she is describing the things which were at home. Okay. So here, sob, which means cry noisily, sniffles, and act of sound. Now, why I'm telling you this? Because in the second paragraph, she tells that the life is always not happy. We are having so many difficulties in our life. So life is not giving us only happy. It is also giving us, it is troubling our minds. It is giving a discomfort. So she feels very sad describing how my life is. It means that she is not from the well-off family. Her most desire is she wants to buy a beautiful gift, that is a present, to present it to her husband. But she is trying her best to collect even a single penny wherever she gets it from. While the mistress of the home is gradually subsiding from the first stage to the second, take a look at a home. A furnished flat at $8 per week. It did not exactly beggar description, but it certainly had that word on the lock out of this Medencency squad. Now here, we will take a look at her home. Here the author says we will take a look at her house. So she gives she has a flat, a furnished flat at $8 per week. She used to give $8 per week. Okay, she was not that much well off. She used to find it difficult to pay even that $8. In the vestibule below was a letter box into which no letter would go, and an electrical button from which no mortal finger could cut a ring. Also, apparatating thereunto was a card bearing the name Mr. James Dwellingen Young. Although they were not well off, in those days, at the entrance of the door, they used to have a calling bell. Below the calling bell, there was his name, beautifully named Mr. James Dwellingen Young. His name, that is Della's husband's name. There was a nameplate with his full name. The Dwellingen had been flung to the breeze during a former period of prosperity when its possessor was being paid $30 per week. Now here, what had happened, here talking about James Dwellingen, so he was working and his salary, that is his weekly pay, was $30 per week. Now, when the income was shrunk to $20, as he was getting 30 per week, now the income of his salary has shrunk, means it has come down to 20, though they were thinking seriously of contraction to a modest and unassuming D. Unassuming D means now they have started to think, although we were getting $30 per week, we were not able to manage the show. But now when the salary has shrunk to $20, how can we start a family happily? The money which we are getting is not fetching. And in that it has come down more. It has shrunk more. How can we do? What can we do? They are sitting and thinking seriously. But whenever Mr. James Dwellingen Young came home and reached his flat above, he was called Jim and greatly hugged by Mrs. Jim Dwellingen Young, already introduced to you as Della, which is all very good. So now every time when Mr. James used to come home, Della was very glad and very delighted to open the door, and she used to call Jim and she used to hug and welcome him. So this was happening in their life. Now here children, these two people, these Della and James, they were loving each other to the core. They used to love so much, like you for me and I for you. They used to love and they were ready to sacrifice anything for their love. So much they used to love each other. Della finished her cry and attended to her cheeks with the powder rang. Now here, what was Della doing before James could come from his work? So Della was taking a look at her house, like what are the things she has and what are the things kept in her house. And she started crying like, I'm not well off to buy a gift for James. She was actually literally crying, okay, that she wanted to buy a gift and tomorrow is a Christmas Eve, but unfortunately she could not do anything. She was sitting and crying. But later, when James came home and she opened the door, she hugged him and she welcomed him. She forgot all that. Okay. Della finished her cry and attended to her cheek with a powder rag. It means maybe my husband will get to know that I was crying. So before he could come, she went and she applied a little bit of powder so that she should look normal. She stood by the window and looked out dully at a grey cat walking. So now here she was standing at the window and there was a cat going across her yard. Okay, a grey prince in a grey backyard. It means in that just beside her house, behind the backyard, there was a cat, grey cat, passing by. Tomorrow would be Christmas Day, and she had only $187 with which to buy Jim a present. Again, she started thinking of the present now. Tomorrow is Christmas. I want to buy a beautiful gift to my husband, but I have a very little money which will not fetch to buy me a gift. She had been saving every penny she could for months. With this result, $20 a week doesn't go far. Expenses have been greater than she had calculated. So now her expenses have been gone so high. Although she had a calculation, she had calculated, oh, here I can save, here I can save. But still her expenses are going high. She is only worried now about the gift. What can I do? How can I do? How can I arrange money for the gift? They always are only $1.87 to buy a present for Jim. Her Jim. Observe, it is her Jim. She's so beautifully telling, it is my Jim. I want to buy a gift for him. Many a happy hours she had spent planning for something nice for him. Sometimes fine and rare and sterling something just a little. Sterling something means British money. Just a little bit near to being worthy of the honor of being owned by Jim. So now here she says, I really want to buy a gift for Jim. I have been planning to buy a beautiful gift, but I'm not having enough money to buy the gift for Jim. There was a pure glass between the windows of the room. Children, pure glass means a large mirror. In those days, like we used to have a very lengthy kind of a glass mirror. She used to have it at her home. Perhaps you have seen a pure glass in her $8 flat. A very thin and very fragile person may, by observing his reflection in a rapid sequence, a longitudinal stripes, obtain a fairly accurate consumption of his look. Della, being slender, had mastered the art. Suddenly she wheeled from the window and stood before the glass. Her eyes were shining brilliantly, but her face had lost its color within 20 seconds. Rapidly she pulled down her hair and let it fall to its full length. Now as she was walking around her house, she came across a pure glass where she stood near the glass and what happened? I'll just describe it again. Suddenly she wheeled. Wheeled means here I have written she was moved and caused to move rapidly around and round as she was walking around thinking of the idea what to do, how to do. Okay, so now she comes and stands in the front of the glass. Suddenly she wheeled from the window and stood before the glass. Her eyes were shining brilliantly, but her face had lost its color within 20 seconds. Rapidly, she pulled down her hair and let it fall to its full length. Now she was standing in front of the mirror, but her face was a little dull, but her eyes were shining brilliantly. Beautiful adjective. Her eyes were shining brilliantly, but her face was a little dull. Now there were two possessions of the Jim dwelling in Young, in which they both took a mighty pride. Children, now these Della and James, they had their possession. Possession means owning something is mine. Possession means owning something is mine. So for Della, she had a possession. She had a beautiful hair, and her hair was really, really very beautiful, and a long, lengthy hair she had, and that was her possession. And for Mr. James, let's see what was his possession. Now there were two possessions for the James dwelling young, in which they both took a mighty pride, very proud of their possession. What was their possession? As I told, for Della it was her long, lengthy hair, and one was Jim's gold watch that had been his father's and his grandfather's. The other was Della's hair. So what possession Jim had? He had a watch which was transferred by his father from grandfathers to father, and now it has been handed to Mr. James. And what was Della's possession? Yes, it was her long hair. Had a queen of Sheba lived in a flat across a hair shaft, Della would have let her hair hung out of the window some day to dry, just to depreciate her majesty, jealous and gifts. Now here we have a third character, that is a Queen Sheba. So Queen Sheba was also living in her flat. So when Della used to wash her hair and used to dry her hair at the window, at that time, Queen Sheba had seen her hair feeling jealous. It means that here the author is comparing Della had such a beautiful hair, even the queen was jealous that, oh my God, she has such a beautiful hair. So here the author, O. Henry, compares to a queen's jealousy, like how Della had a long hair and the queen is jealous of Della's long hair. And here, Her Majesty jealous and gifts. Had King Solomon been a janitor with all his treasure piled up in the basement, Jim could have pulled out his watch every time he passed just to see him pluck at his beard from envy. Now, what was the great possession which James had? He had a beautiful watch. So when he passes by King Solomon, he used to show his watch he used to just show his watch. At that time, you know what happens to the king, the Solomon? He gets envy, means he also feels very jealous. Enemy means he also feels, I have given you the meaning here, he also feels very jealous about his watch, and he just stands with a beard like this, in this position he stands. So now Della's beautiful hair fell about her, rippling and shining like a cascade of brown waters. Now here, the author describes Della's beautiful hair as a river with a very wavy, a river with a series of flowing water. So beautifully her hair is there. He is describing it, comparing to the small waves on the surface. So how is Della's beautiful hair? It is like rippling and shining like a cascade of brown waters. It reached below her knee. She had such a long, lengthy hair. It used to reach below her knee and made itself almost a garment for her. It was like a cloth, a garment for her, as if she has owned something. It was like, example, you can take it as a jacket. It was so nice to cover. It was like that of her. And then she did it up again nervously and quickly. Once she fluttered for a minute and stood still while a tears or two splashed on the old red carpet. I repeat. So now Della's beautiful hair fell about her, rippling and shining like a cascade of brown waters. It reached below her knee and made it almost a garment on her. And then she did it up again nervously and quickly. Once she fluttered for a minute and stood still while a tears or two splashed on the ore of red carpet. She just stood and she just admired at her beauty, and her tears came out. On went her old brown jacket, on went her old brown hat with a wheel of skirts, and with the brilliant sparkle still in her eyes, she fluttered out of the door and down and stairs to the street. Now here she wore a brown jacket and she wore a brown hat and she wore a skirt, and she, with a brilliant sparkling eye, she went out of the door and she went out of the house to the street, where she stopped the signboard as she was walking. She was actually sad and she put her tears looking at her eyes, and all this happened. She just came out of her house. As she was walking on the street, she comes across a board, a signboard, means a board written, softening hair goods of all kinds. She comes across the board, softening hair goods of all kinds. One flight up Della ran and collected herself, panting, madam. Panting means with a big breath. Madam, two white chilly hardly looked at Sophie. Means she went running to that hairdresser. She just went there, and what did she say? Will you buy my hair? Asked Della. What did she ask? She comes across a board where there is a sign saying that hair goods of all kinds. Okay. So she comes across the board and she gets into the hairdresser's shop, and she asks, Madam, will you buy my hair? Asked Della. I buy hair, said Madam. Take off your hat and let her have a sight at the look of it. Down rippled the brown cascade. Now here she went into and she asked the madam, will you buy my hair? She said, yeah, I buy, but remove your cap, remove your hat, let me see your hair. Let me have a look at your hair. Now she goes then, down rippled the brown cascade. Again here, when she opens the hat, when she leaves her hair down. So here, the madam feels that how is her hair? Down ripple the brown cascade, means it is again like a wavy water. It is described as I told you here, ripple and shining, flowing with a series of small waves on the surface, like her hair was a beautiful wavy water kind it was. Okay. $20, said Madam, lifting the mask with a practiced hand. She just lifted her hair, like the hair was here with a practiced hand. She's trained. With a practiced hand, she just lifted like this, and she said, okay, $20 I will give you. Give it to me quick, said Della. What did she say? Give it to me quick, said Della. Children, I hope till here you have understood. This is a lengthy lesson. So in this class, I have taught 17 paragraphs I have covered. In the next part 2 class, I will cover up the whole lesson. So at the time, I will also give you the meanings once again. Bulldozing, bargain too much. Okay, bulldozing, bargain too much. Sob. He's here. She's sitting at home and she's crying. She's sobbing means she cries in a very bad sense, giving a noise, screaming, sniffling. That is what here the author has described. Sob, cry noisily, sniffles, an act of sound. Predominate, be the strongest, be greater in number or amount. Flip down, to drop down heavily. Shabby, old and worn out, means she had all shabby things at home. That is what here they have described. Couch, sofa, howl, scream and cry. Vestibule, entrance hall, vestibule, entrance hall, pure glass, a large mirror, wheels, move or cause to move rapidly around and around. Agile, able to move quickly. Agile, able to move quickly. Depreciate, diminish in value over a period of time, means the value of any of the things, it comes down, that is depreciate. Janitor, a caretaker or a doorkeeper of a building. Janitor. Envy, jealous. Ripple and shining, here he has described about her long lengthy hair which is below the knee. Rippling and shining, flowing with a series of small waves on the surface. Flowing with a series of small waves on a surface. I hope you understood, children. Everything is clear. If you have any doubt, we will meet up. Thank you.